Soft music rises, a sound like wind passing through marble halls. This is not a tale of war, nor of conquest, but of a journey into silence. In the heart of forgotten myths, there is a temple no map dares to mark. It is called the Temple of Truth Eternal, where lies cannot cross its threshold. Legends say its walls breathe with light, and within waits a mirror of the soul. Athena, goddess of wisdom, guards its secret, watching from shadows of time. She waits for those who hunger not for riches, but for answers deeper than gold. For truth is not a crown, nor a weapon, but a light hidden within every heart. Our story begins with a whisper, faint as the wings of an owl in night skies. It is a call carried across the world, heard only by those who are restless. One seeker, one mortal, feels its pull, though he knows not where it leads. He leaves behind the noise of cities, the endless debates, the crowded streets. And so begins a journey, guided by Athena's unseen hand, toward a temple eternal. They say legends never die. They only sleep, waiting for ears willing to listen. In the old world, where stories traveled faster than wind, whispers spoke of a hidden temple. No road was carved to reach it. No map dared to draw its walls. Yet it lived in memory. The Temple of Truth Eternal. A place where all illusions wither and only the bare soul remains. Its name drifted like smoke through villages, carried by poets, dreamers, and wandering singers. Some claimed the temple was a ruin, a ghost of stone dissolving with the dawn light. Others swore it was alive, its walls shifting like breath, its doors sealed by silence. To the common folk, it was a myth, a tale told beside fire when nights grew long. But to those who felt a restlessness in their hearts, it was more than legend. It was a call, a promise that truth might still be found beyond human deceit. They said an owl, silver-feathered and watchful, knew the path to its hidden threshold. Those who followed it vanished from the world, leaving no footprints in the sand. Some said they became mad, trapped forever in questions too heavy for mortal minds. Others believed they found peace, a clarity so deep no lie could ever touch them again. The temple itself was never cruel, never kind, only a mirror of what one carried inside. Athena, goddess of wisdom, watched over it, her gaze patient as stone carved by time. She did not summon kings nor warriors, but those who trembled with doubt and yearning. For only seekers who asked without pride could step closer to its breathing gates. The temple was not of gold, nor built to dazzle, but born of light, older than stars. It waited beyond the edge of knowing, where silence hummed louder than mortal voices. In every era, one or two souls heard its call, like a note plucked from eternity. They left behind their homes, their names, their comforts, and walked into the unknown. Their stories were scattered, blurred by ages, but always touched by the same mystery. The legend endured because truth itself endures, never vanishing though hidden by shadow. And so, when the owl's wings spread across the night sky once more, the world listened. For its flight meant another seeker had been chosen, another journey was about to begin. This time, the whisper found Callis, a young philosopher whose heart was restless as the sea. The world called him clever, yet wisdom slipped through his hands, like water in a stream. When he closed his eyes at night, he felt a question pressing louder than any dream. He wondered if truth was real, or only a mask worn by voices with power. And in that wondering, the call grew strong, drawing him toward the temple of truth eternal. Athena's gaze stretched far beyond mountains, across seas, into the quiet corners where mortals dreamed. She watched with patience, as a gardener watches seeds, waiting for the right soul to awaken. Her wisdom was endless. Yet even wisdom bends when truth is hidden by shadows of deceit. For ages, she had seen men twist truth, shaping it like clay to serve their desires. Kings proclaimed themselves divine. Priests claimed to hold heaven's voice. Merchants sold lies for silver. The world was drowning not in silence, but in noise too loud to hear what mattered. Athena felt the balance tremble, a thread stretched thin between what was and what was told. And so the dream came to her, not as command, but as vision carved in starlight. She saw the temple stirring, its walls glowing faint, as if it too longed to be found. The temple of truth eternal did not sleep forever. It breathed when mortals forgot their way. Now it called again, summoning her to guide a mortal, fragile yet bold, toward its light. Athena did not choose warriors, nor rulers, for they carried pride heavier than their armor. She sought seekers, those who asked questions until silence itself gave them no rest. Among countless souls, one burned brighter in her vision, a restless flame within a young man. Callis, the philosopher, known not for answers, but for the questions he could not silence. He wandered markets challenging merchants, asking if value was truth or only desire disguised. He lingered in temples, whispering doubts, asking priests if their gods were voices or echoes. The world mocked him as dreamer, yet Athena saw in him a hunger for clarity. She knew his heart trembled not with arrogance, but with yearning to uncover what was real. That night, when the stars spread wide, Athena sent her owl into the mortal's dream. Its wings brushed his sleep, carrying with it a whisper that stirred his bones awake. In his dream, he stood on a path of silver stone, endless and glowing beneath stars. At the end, he saw a doorway of light, yet it trembled as if waiting for him. He reached out, and the doorway rippled, showing glimpses of faces, his, yet not his own. Athena's voice rose, gentle yet firm, a sound like wind through olive trees at dawn. Truth is not given, she said. It is sought, uncovered like roots hidden beneath earth. Callis woke with the weight of her words echoing, as though carved into the air. The dream did not leave him. It followed like a shadow through his waking hours. Every word he heard felt heavy, every silence deeper, as if truth pulled at his soul. He knew then the temple had called, not through maps, but through the goddess herself. And Athena, watching from eternity, knew the journey had begun, guided by wisdom's quiet hand. Callis lived in a city of marble streets, where voices clashed louder than the ringing of bells. Philosophers argued in the squares, their words sharp as spears, yet none reached beyond the surface. Merchants boasted of treasures, selling not just goods, but promises polished brighter than truth itself. Priests declared answers from their altars, their voices heavy with certainty, yet hollow beneath. Callis walked among them, listening, questioning, but never satisfied with the certainty of others. His heart was restless, as if chained, tugging at questions no one dared to ask. Why did truth wear so many faces? Yet none seemed unchanging, none entirely whole. At night, when the city grew quiet, he would sit beneath the olive trees. He would write thoughts in the dust with a stick, only to erase them moments later. Every word felt too small, every answer too fragile to carry the weight of truth. His friends laughed at his doubts, saying he was cursed to chase shadows until old age. Yet Callis knew the emptiness in their laughter, a fear of questions left unanswered. The dream from Athena did not leave him. It echoed in his waking breath. The silver path from his vision seemed to shimmer in every street he walked. He watched the owl in the night sky, gliding as if it alone knew the way. One evening, he followed its shadow across the rooftops, though no one else noticed it. He wandered through alleys where silence grew, far from the noise of the city. There, he felt something stir, a pull not of place, but of purpose rising in him. He returned to the marketplace the next morning, yet everything felt smaller, duller, untrue. The voices of merchants rang empty. The speeches of philosophers felt brittle as dried leaves. Even the chants of the priests seemed to crumble, as if truth refused to dwell there. Callis looked upon the city with new eyes, and saw walls built of lies and longing. He realized then that his path could not remain within marble streets and crowded debates. The dream had not been illusion, but invitation, a whisper calling him to depart. He sold what little he owned, though his possessions were meager and his heart unbound. Those who knew him shook their heads, calling him a fool chasing a phantom temple. But Callis no longer listened to their voices. He listened only to the silence within. At night, he packed a small satchel with bread, water, and a blank scroll for notes. The owl appeared again, perched upon a stone wall, its silver feathers glowing in starlight. Its eyes met his, steady, as if measuring the weight of his courage and doubt. With a slow flap of wings, it rose into the night, tracing a path beyond the city. And Callis, with no farewell and no fear, stepped into the darkness, following wisdom's guide. So began his journey, not for glory, nor for riches, but for truth untouched by hands. The night was silent as Callis left the gates of the city, the owl gliding ahead like a lantern. The marble walls behind him faded, replaced by the open breath of fields whispering beneath starlight. He felt both weightless and heavy, as if he had stepped from one world into another unseen. The owl circled above him, its wings tracing silver arcs, urging him toward the unseen horizon. Each step carried him farther from the noise of markets, closer to a silence that felt alive. The road bent through farmlands where lanterns glowed, and farmers slept unaware of his quiet passage. He felt like a ghost between worlds, no longer of the city, not yet of the unknown. By dawn, he reached crossroads where three paths stretched, each marked by travelers and fading tracks. The owl perched upon a weathered sign, its eyes glinting with quiet certainty, pointing him east. He followed, though the eastern road looked narrow, twisted, and shunned by carts and weary travelers. Along the path, he met a merchant carrying jewels wrapped in velvet, his smile polished bright. "Traveler," the merchant said, "why chase dust when you can own treasures brighter than any dream?" Callis paused, gazing at the jewels, their fire glittering. Yet they felt heavy with hidden falsehood. "No treasure can buy truth," he replied. And the merchant laughed, vanishing into the morning mist. Later, he met a band of wanderers singing, their voices sweet, but words hollow as reeds. They praised freedom, yet in their eyes he saw chains of doubt, heavier than city walls. The owl hooted once, sharply, and Callis turned from their songs before they tangled his heart. The road narrowed further, stones sharp beneath his feet, yet his spirit grew lighter with each mile. He realized then that truth was not loud, not glittering, but hidden beneath layers of noise. The silence taught him more than debates. For in silence, illusions had no stage to perform. By evening, he reached a forest where trees leaned close, their branches whispering secrets to one another. The owl landed on a branch and watched him, as if testing whether he feared the dark. Shadows grew thick, but Callis pressed on, carrying only the sound of his own steady breath. He remembered Athena's voice echoing through his dream. "Truth is not given, it is sought. That night, he built a small fire beneath the trees. The owl perched silently above him. He stared into the flames, watching sparks rise like stars, wondering where the road would lead. The forest creaked with unseen lives. Yet he felt no fear, only a quiet sense of belonging. For the first time, he understood that the journey itself was shaping him more than the goal. Sleep came softly, wrapped in starlight and firelight, while the owl kept its steady, eternal watch. And so the first steps of his true path began, marked not by noise, but by silence. Callis walked for days until the green of the forest thinned, and sand stretched before him endlessly. The owl flew high above, its silver wings faint against the sky, guiding him into the desert. This was no ordinary desert, but the desert of echoes, where thoughts spoke louder than voices. Every step stirred whispers, soft at first, then growing until they surrounded him like restless winds. When he thought of doubt, the wind howled with laughter, mocking him with his own uncertain voice. When he thought of fear, the dunes shifted violently, swirling into storms that clawed at his path. But when he whispered hope, the wind softened, and the sky cleared as if bowing to him. He soon learned that here, the world did not reflect the sun, but the soul of the traveler. His own mind was laid bare, its strength and weakness echoing louder than any shout. Callis sat upon the sand at dusk, closing his eyes, afraid of the noise within him. He remembered Athena's voice, calm and steady, teaching him that silence is a choice, not a gift. He focused on his breath, and the echoes slowly dimmed until only his heartbeat filled the air. Night fell. Stars spread across the desert sky, each one like an eye watching his resolve. The owl perched on a nearby dune, silent, waiting, as though it trusted him to endure. At dawn, the whispers returned, testing him again, louder, like waves breaking on unseen shores. This time, Callis did not run from them, but listened, each echo carrying truth in disguise. He realized the desert was not punishing him, but teaching him the weight of his own thoughts. If he fed his mind with fear, storms grew. If with faith, the path cleared ahead. So he spoke aloud. I will walk forward, not by sight, but by trust in what is true. The desert quieted, the wind bowing low, as if acknowledging his newfound strength. He walked on, each step lighter, until he no longer feared the storm within himself. At midday, he found a pool of water, shimmering though no river flowed to feed it. When he bent to drink, the reflection was not of his face, but of a child. The boy stared at him with wide eyes, innocent, unbroken by the weight of endless questions. Callis blinked, and the image rippled, fading back to his weary but wiser reflection. He understood then that truth was not only in words, but also in remembering who he was. The desert had shown him his echoes, but also reminded him that silence carried truth deeper still. As the sun dipped westward, the owl lifted into the sky, calling him onward with a cry. Callis followed, leaving behind the endless whispers, his heart steadier than it had ever been. And so he crossed the desert of echoes, not as the man who entered, but as one remade. Callis left the desert behind as mountains rose ahead, jagged peaks touching the sky like stone prayers. The owl flew lower now, circling him, as if to remind him the path would grow steeper. He followed winding trails that clung to cliffs, each step echoing in the silence of high air. The wind carried voices, not of men, but of the mountain itself, deep and solemn as time. At dusk, he found a stone arch carved into the mountainside, marked with runes glowing faintly. He touched the stone, and the air shifted, a doorway opening to the cavern of reflections. Inside, the walls glittered like mirrors, reflecting not his body, but the story of his soul. He saw himself as a boy, eager and reckless, chasing shadows, believing every answer lay outside. He saw himself as a man, searching endlessly, yet blind to the truths already within him. Each reflection spoke, not with lips, but with silence, showing him pieces of himself long forgotten. One reflection was weary, shoulders bent with burdens. Another was proud, blind to his own pride. Callis stood frozen, caught between his fragments, afraid to choose which one was the truest self. The owl's shadow crossed the wall, breaking the silence, reminding him that truth is not division. He closed his eyes and breathed, feeling the weight of all the selves he had been. When he opened them, the reflections merged, no longer separate but one, whole and steady. The cavern shimmered brighter, as if approving his acceptance of every part of his journey. He understood then that truth was not perfection, but wholeness, the union of every shadow and light. Moving deeper, he found a pool at the cavern's heart, still as glass, endless in depth. When he looked, he saw not himself, but Athena's gaze, calm, clear, eternal as the stars. Her voice rose from the water. "You carry many faces, Callis, but truth holds them together." He bowed his head, tears pressing but unshed, for the weight of her words filled him completely. The water rippled, showing a path through the cavern, glowing faintly with threads of silver light. He followed, feeling lighter than when he entered, as though he had shed a cloak of shadows. The path led upward, opening to the mountain's peak, where the sky stretched endless and blue. The wind was fierce, yet it did not push him back. It carried him forward like unseen hands. There, carved into the stone, stood a great pillar with an inscription worn but unbroken by time. It read, "The seeker who knows himself carries truth farther than any blade or crown." Callis traced the words, knowing they were not left for kings or warriors, but for wanderers. The owl perched on the pillar, its eyes steady as if asking if he understood at last. He smiled, not with triumph, but with peace, knowing he had found more than he sought. The mountain did not answer, but its silence was enough, deeper than any voice could ever be. Callis descended slowly, each step steady, carrying the truth of the mountain within his heart. And so, the Cavern of Reflections became another chapter in his journey toward the Temple Eternal. Callis descended from the mountain into a valley where rivers shimmered like threads of silver under the sun. The air was warmer here, filled with birdsong, as though the land itself sang of gentle truths. He followed the river's bend, its waters clear, carrying the reflection of clouds across their rippling surface. The owl soared ahead, then landed on a stone bridge carved with symbols of balance and wisdom. Crossing the bridge, Callis entered a meadow where people gathered, dressed in robes of soft white. They greeted him with quiet smiles, their eyes calm, their presence like still water after rain. These were the keepers of balance, guardians of harmony, who spoke less with words than with silence. They led him to a circle of stones, each marked with an ancient emblem of truth. One elder approached, her hair silver, her voice steady as she asked, "Seeker, why do you walk?" Callis replied, "I walk not for glory, nor for wealth, but to find truth eternal within." The circle murmured with approval, though no sound passed their lips, only a shared breath of trust. The elder guided him to sit among them, inviting him into their ritual of listening. No chant was spoken, no fire lit, only silence deeper than any cavern or desert. At first, Callis fidgeted, unused to stillness among others, his thoughts restless, seeking distraction. But as minutes stretched into hours, he felt their calm seep into him like gentle rain. In that silence, he heard the rivers flow, the grass bending, the wind tracing the meadow. He realized truth was not always sought in struggle, but in stillness that carried its own power. The elder finally spoke, her words slow as stone. Balance is truth in motion, never still, always whole. She showed him 2 bowls, one filled with water, one with sand, resting equally on a scale. Too much of one, and the balance breaks, she said. Truth must live between weight and light. Callis touched the bowls, feeling their difference, yet knowing their harmony was what gave them meaning. He thought of the desert storms, the mountain silence, each a truth, yet needing the other. The owl hooted softly, its eyes glimmering, as though agreeing with the lesson of balance. Night came, and the keepers lit lanterns, not to banish darkness, but to honor its presence. They sang a wordless song, low and steady, echoing with the rhythm of earth and sky. Callis felt his heart align with theirs, steady, unbroken, no longer chasing, but simply being. The elder placed her hand upon his, whispering, "You are not alone, for truth binds us all." He bowed, not in obedience, but in gratitude, knowing their gift was not knowledge, but presence. By dawn, he left the meadow, the river guiding him once more, his steps lighter, heart steady. The owl rose into the sky, wings spread wide, carrying him onward to his next trial. And so, the Valley of Balance became another truth, carved into his journey toward the eternal temple. Callis journeyed beyond the valley, where the land grew darker, wrapped in mist that hid the horizon. The owl circled above, its wings cutting the fog, guiding him toward a place of shadows. Here lay the forest of forgotten voices, where truth was tested by memory and the weight of time. The trees rose tall, their bark blackened, their branches whispering names he had once heard before. Every step he took, the forest echoed with voices of those he had left behind. He heard the laughter of his childhood, warm and free, calling him back to days of innocence. He heard the stern command of his father, urging him to follow paths of duty and pride. He heard the soft voice of a friend he once betrayed by silence, heavy with unspoken regret. Each voice pulled at him, tugging like vines, trying to draw him back into their shadows. The owl hooted once, sharp and clear, reminding him that truth lives not in chains of the past. Callis pressed onward, though his heart ached, each step heavy with the weight of remembered guilt. The forest thickened, and the air grew heavy, as though sorrow itself had woven into the mist. He saw a figure ahead, standing still, cloaked in shadow but shaped like someone he once knew. It was himself, younger and unscarred, eyes bright with hope, untouched by loss or failure. The figure spoke. "Why seek truth when you are happier without questions, content with illusions?" Callis trembled, for the words pierced deep, echoing the longing to return to easier days. But he remembered Athena's voice. "Truth is not comfort, but clarity. It will demand your courage." He lifted his gaze and answered, "I cannot return, for truth once awakened cannot be unlearned." The shadow self frowned, fading into mist, leaving only silence and the rustle of weary trees. Callis walked further, and the voices softened, not gone, but blending into a quiet hum. He realized the forest was not here to punish him, but to remind him of what he carried. Memories were not chains, but roots, holding him steady if he chose to honor, not obey them. At the forest's heart, he found a clearing with a pool still and black as polished stone. He looked into the water and saw not one reflection, but many, his past selves, layered within. They did not accuse him, nor call to him, but simply watched, waiting for his recognition. He bowed his head, whispering, "You are part of me, but you do not hold me prisoner." The reflections faded, leaving only his present self, weary but unbroken, steady in his journey. The owl descended, perching on his shoulder, as if to mark his passage through memory's trial. At dawn, the mist lifted, the forest opening into fields bathed in new light, clear and wide. Callis stepped out, carrying no burden but the knowledge that truth must embrace memory, not flee it. And so, the forest of forgotten voices became another lesson etched upon his path to the eternal temple. Callis walked beyond the fields where the mist had cleared, and a vast plain stretched beneath the sky. The owl soared above, its shadow small on the golden grass that waved like a sea in the wind. In the distance stood a tower of white stone, gleaming, rising higher than any he had seen. It was called the Tower of Silence, a place where seekers learn to listen beyond words. As he approached, the plain grew still, the wind halting, the birds silent, the world holding breath. At the tower's base, a gate of bronze stood open, humming faintly as though alive with waiting. Callis stepped inside, and the world of sound fell away, leaving only the beat of his heart. The walls were smooth, spiraling upward, carrying him higher with each careful step he made. No voices guided him, no visions spoke, only silence wrapping him in layers deep as the sea. At first he struggled, longing for even the owl's call, but no sound broke the still air. He realized the trial here was not to hear, but to bear the absence of every echo. At the tower's midpoint, he paused, leaning against stone, weary of silence, heavier than any storm. Then he felt something shift, not outside, but within, a small spark hidden beneath endless quiet. It was his own voice, faint, buried under years of doubt, yet steady like an ember. It whispered not in words, but in certainty, a truth carried not from without, but within. He climbed higher, following the ember's glow, though no light showed, only the strength of trust. At the summit, he found a chamber open to the sky, the wind moving again, soft and free. The silence broke not with noise, but with harmony, as though the air itself now carried truth. There, carved into the floor, were words etched by countless hands. Truth speaks first in silence. Callis knelt, tracing the letters, his heart calm, his mind steady, no longer chasing illusions. The owl landed beside him, its wings folding, eyes bright, as though it too had endured the trial. Looking out across the plains, he saw no path, yet knew one would appear where trust carried him. The silence had taught him that answers do not always arrive with thunder, but in quiet presence. He rose, no longer afraid of the absence of sound, for he had found his own inner voice. Descending the tower, the air filled again with wind, grass swaying, birds calling from the distance. But now, he heard them not as noise, but as music, part of a greater truth unfolding. The plain seemed less empty, the sky less vast, for he carried silence within him, like a guide. As night fell, stars emerged, countless and steady. Their light, a silent chorus, spread across eternity. Callis walked on, the owl above, toward the horizon where the temple of truth awaited. And so, the Tower of Silence became another step, carving strength into his soul for the journey ahead. The horizon glowed faintly as dawn broke, and Callis felt the path beneath his feet begin to rise. Ahead, the owl circled slower, its wings steady, guiding him toward the mountain that kissed the clouds. The Temple of Truth Eternal rested there, a sanctuary untouched by time, waiting with patient silence. Each step was harder now, not from weight, but from the gravity of what lay ahead. The air grew thin, yet filled with a hum, as though the mountain itself whispered ancient promises. Rocks gleamed faintly, etched with patterns no hand had carved, symbols alive with unseen memory. Callis touched them, and warmth spread, a reminder that truth was never cold, but quietly alive. The climb carried him through forests of silver trees, their leaves shimmering like stars in daylight. Birds perched in silence, watching him, their eyes calm, as though they too kept the temple's secret. At last, the summit appeared, and beyond it stood gates of crystal, towering yet delicate as light. The owl landed before them, bowed once, and vanished into a mist that drifted through the gates. Callis placed his hand upon the crystal, and it yielded, opening without sound, without resistance. Inside, the temple was vast, pillars of light rising where stone might have stood elsewhere. The floor reflected the sky, yet held his weight, every step ringing softly as if across eternity. At the center burned no fire, no flame, but a sphere of light pulsing with gentle rhythm. He knew without doubt this was the heart of the temple, the eternal truth he had sought. But as he approached, no voice called, no god appeared, only his reflection shimmering in the glow. And he realized the temple was not a place of answers, but a mirror for the soul. Truth eternal was not hidden in stone or sky, but carried in each step, each choice. He knelt before the light, not in worship, but in acceptance, knowing he had become the seeker and the truth. The light pulsed once brighter, filling the chamber, wrapping him in warmth that felt like home. Visions passed. The owl's eyes, the whispering fields, the tower's silence, all weaving into one. Each trial had not given truth, but revealed it, shaping him to recognize what was always within. The glow softened, the temple breathing with him, no longer distant, but one with his spirit. When he rose, the gates stood open again, and the mountain no longer seemed high or harsh. For the temple was not just here, but everywhere he walked, in silence, in words, in light. He stepped outside, stars fading as dawn blazed across the world, light touching every shadow. The owl appeared once more, its wings bright against the sky, circling in farewell and blessing. Callis smiled, no longer searching, for he carried the temple of truth eternal within his heart. And with steady steps, he walked down the mountain, ready to live the truth he had found. The mountain behind him faded into the distance, its peaks veiled by mist, its secrets carried by the wind. Callis walked the path downward, each step lighter, as though the weight of countless doubts had been released. The owl circled once more above, then vanished into the horizon, leaving him to carry the journey alone. Yet he no longer felt alone, for silence, vision, and light lived within him, companions beyond form. The valley below opened wide, rivers glimmering, villages waking, the world alive in its endless rhythm. Children ran by streams, elders tended fires, life weaving its simple truth without need of grand temples. He watched with new eyes, seeing not what was hidden, but what had always been before him. A farmer's laughter, a child's question, a mother's song, all carried the same eternal truth he had found. He realized the temple of truth eternal was not a place reached once, but a presence lived daily, Each word spoken with honesty, each silence carried with care, each step guided by inner light. Callis greeted those he passed, his voice calm, his heart steady, and they felt warmth in his tone. Some asked where he had traveled, but he answered only with a smile, for words could not capture it. Truth was not in telling, but in being, in living gently, in standing firm without pride or fear. Nights under stars reminded him of the chamber of light, vast and unending, yet near his breath. Dawns reminded him of the mountain's gates, opening without demand, as truth always opens to those ready. He carried silence not as emptiness, but as music, allowing him to hear the harmony in all things. The owl never returned, but its wings echoed in his memory, a symbol of wisdom never lost. In time, stories spread of a traveler with steady eyes who spoke little, yet carried deep peace. People sought him, asking for secrets, but he offered none, only kindness, patience, and presence. And in their company, he saw the reflection of the temple's light, shining quietly in every soul. For truth eternal was not locked in stone or hidden by gods, but lived through every human heart. Years passed, seasons turned, and Callis aged, his hair silver, his steps slower, yet his spirit strong. He sat often by rivers, telling children stories not of answers, but of questions worth carrying. And when he closed his eyes, he felt no fear, for he knew truth walked beside him always. The temple of truth eternal remained on the mountain, yet its light reached every valley, every home. Callis had become its living echo, proof that truth need not thunder, for it shines in stillness. And so his journey ended, not in grand triumph, but in quiet fulfillment, in harmony with the world. The story of Callis reminds us that temples may guide us, but truth must be carried within. For the temple of truth eternal is not a destination, but a way of living wherever we walk.